Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome. Everyone, come and join us.
Hello.
There's a lot of places still there. This is like filling up a bus, you know, the first places are taken, but in the back, there's
lots of seats in the back.
Yes.
Good.
Let's just wait for a minute. Everybody arrives. Welcome. Take a seat. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So welcome everyone. It's good to see so many familiar faces, a lot of new faces as well. So just say welcome to the person next to you so everybody feels welcome, even if you know them. Woo, maybe they don't know them. Yes. Everybody feeling welcome. That's what we want. And also, now we started, now it's done. Now we lost the group. Also, we have participants joining us online. So I want to say welcome to them as well. I don't know if we can see them.
You can wave for sure.
We can wave. Woo! Yes, feel welcome.
Whee!
There they are. Hi. Welcome. An applause for them. Yes.
Woo!
Oh, this is incredible. I'm sure some people online might envy us a bit because we are here face to face, but we also envy them a little bit. They're on their couch with their pajama on, so there's advantages as well. Well, we're going to start. My name is Anita. I come from Portugal. I will be co-facilitating this event together with a big team of the Academy family, but I will be sharing the stage with the great Darko.
So now when you introduce my name, I have to skip this line. My name is Darko. So big and warm welcome to the second edition of the European Academy on Youth Work. Maybe for the beginning, I would like to say we made it, or you made it. We all made it. Finally here.
We did it.
It took a bit of time. It took a bit of postponement. It took a lot of patience and courage, but we are finally here.
Yes.
So big warm welcome to all of you and also people on Zoom.
And with no further ado, we have with us two members of the steering group of the Academy to give us some opening words. So I want a big round of applause for, Uros Skrinar, the head of the Slovenian National Agency, and Lucia Abbinante, the head of the Italian National Agency.
Hey. Dear colleagues, dear friends of innovation in youth work and in youth policy, welcome. It's our pleasure, mine and Lucia's, to welcome you today here on the name of all the partners, again in Kranjska Gora for the second edition of our European Academy on Youth Work. Why we are standing here together? Because we would like to show that Academy became strong strategic cooperation of youth national agencies of Erasmus Plus and Solidarity Core programs and Salto resource centers. With its innovative approach also, it's not something that we do strategically for a long time already. It's quite new. We started it with a clear aim that we want Academy to become a regular platform for reflection, exchange, and knowledge gathering on innovation and current European topics, themes, and developments in youth work. And today, seeing you all here for the second time, I think we all together planned good.
Yes, Uros, thank you. The Italian National Agency, as strategic partner of the Academy since the beginning, strongly believes that this Academy has become a strategic appointment at the European level in the development of youth work and youth policies. And the Academy this year, this second edition of the Academy, has two meanings. The first one is to become in presence after 2 years of pandemic, and to be part of the bond process and the European Youth Work Agenda and giving a big contribution to the development of the innovative dimension of the youth work. And for this reason, I think that it's very important. And the other things that I would like to remark is that youth work is an important tool to allow young people to be part of the society and to be at the center. And this is very important, moreover, in this pandemic era and in this new society we are building. I am also convinced that we have to show how the Academy and the youth work contributes to the development of Erasmus Plus programs and the European Solidarity Corps. We, as national agencies, are responsible for. And as national agencies, it's really important to show this good cooperation on the Academy. I think that the Academy is a big best practice. And yes, on the behalf of the Italian National Agency, we have all the commitment to help you, to continue help you to build the future of this snack, and maybe in other places, maybe here, maybe we don't know, but that's it.
Well, for sure, I think that European youth work community wants and probably will want soon the third European Academy on Youth Work. But first, step by step, as I always say, today we need to kick second edition. So, dear participants from all around Europe, we have gathered today here to address the questions of why, where and how innovation in youth work happens, and which conditions are needed so that innovative approaches and practices, as also Lucia said, can successfully respond to developments and the challenges faced by young people in Europe, especially in this post-pandemic era and, unfortunately, war in Ukraine. So, with fruitful program, with so many really quality contributions that you will hear and present, I must say that I am convinced that our youth work has a bright future. And before we totally kick off the Academy today, let me be very clear. Thank you to all of you, participants and contributors, because you are here and this is your academy. There is no academy if there are not practitioners of youth work community. What is also important, I would like to thank to all the members of advisory board, steering group. They're all around here. Some of them, believe it or not, didn't meet because we were setting up addition in the time of pandemic. So this is also opportunity for all of us to meet together. What is also important, that this academy can succeed and can develop only because of the support and working together with all the national agencies of youth. And on the end, thank you to all the organizational team. There are a lot of them taking care of us today and preparing the programs. And the least, but definitely not the last, one big thank you to one and another one, two colleagues of my Slovenian national agency, Susanna and Sonia, for all your sleepless nights, for your energy, and to basically bringing really good quality in the second edition of the Academy. Thank you all.
Thank you, Uros, and thank you, Lucia, for kind words. It's nice to have such people on the steering group of this event. So with this energy, probably we can just have the same energy here. Yes, thanks a lot to the management team, Sonia, Susanna, and the colleagues. There are also a little bit more people there behind. Uros mentioned several groups or individuals who are behind the Academy, but let me share with you a bit, if it's possible, to click. No, it doesn't click. Yes, so let's see. Yes, Uros mentioned already there is a Academy. It doesn't happen by itself. I mean, obviously, when you have an event of 150 people, there must be something or somebody behind. And Uros mentioned already steering group and the advisory board, thinking a lot about strategic nature, innovative nature, content. So, for example, one of the big issues in the advisory group who was advising us while designing the program of the Academy was how can we move from the Academy of Products to the Academy of Processes. So you will see probably the change from the previous Academy to this one, that actually there will be much more thinking behind. So not just presenting practices, but actually lots of thinking behind the practices themselves. So that's one clear example actually how advisory board was advising us in the process. Maybe a big applause for these two groups. And one more thank you to Sonia and Salto Southeast Europe and Susanna for organizing, and as Uros said, sleepless nights and everything there. So one applause, one more then. Yes. But there's more. If you look behind, probably in your backpacks you already get the publication which is called Innovation in Youth Work. And that's what we call Academy researchers. So we have Michelangelo, Dragan, and Federica, and they will speak today, so we will get to know more about them, but they are here with us, and so big thank you for the researchers. We will also have speakers. Gary is here with us for today's session, but there will be also Nereus and Aisha and probably some more people who will come to speak from this stage. And Uros will say we are here to listen and learn. So people who will bring the content from the stage to the audience. So big applause also for them. Well, one important person here actually I will ask you, Boško, yes, to stand up. And so that's Boško there in the white shirt. Boško is really VIP here because he is not just very important as a person, but he has a very responsible role to play. So he's one that actually will help us carry the message from this circle outside of this circle. So bring the message back to the outside world, although we will share this responsibility, but Boško will collect all the insights and bring it back in the report from the Academy. We have a bit more. Click. Okay. Well, Academy, even since the very beginning, was based on contributions. And these contributions are the quality contributions, selected, recognized, paid. So these are the contributions that are considered as quality, innovation, practices, processes in youth work today. So there's plenty of contributions and contributors with us. So big applause for you, because without you, probably Academy won't be there. Of course, facilitators, not just Anita and myself, there's also people behind, Marinella and Limonas, and plenty of people who will facilitate forums, these moments when contributions will be shared. So big applause for all facilitators there. And you can just continue. We have a communication and media team. We have 5 young volunteers from Slovenia helping us, really helping hands and really giving contribution. So big applause for them. Then, of course, yourself. And surprisingly, on Thursday, we will also have not just regular online participants, but we will have students from 4 universities who are very curious about what's going on in the academy in youth work, and they're studying youth work in 4 countries. And they will join for the plenary session, so we can greet them on Thursday morning. So this is actually who is all making the academy in 2022. Just one slide about what academy is about. Uros said a bit already about it, but just maybe a little reminder. So while preparing in this long process of event that has been postponed several times, we had lots of times to rethink and think about what kind of event is this? Yeah? Is it a conference? Is it a training course? Is it a seminar? What is it? And we thought, okay, you can imagine the academy event as this blue circle. Yeah? And in this blue circle, somehow you come, and this is kind of you personally, in this event, you come. And it is also a lot about yourself in here, being a youth worker, being somebody interested in youth work in Europe, so it's you coming to this event. But there's also plenty of other people. And you immediately get this kind of community feeling the moment you join this room or to join the hotel, it already starts. So there's plenty of other people there. But what we actually have to remember, there's much, much more people in the youth field or youth work field outside of this circle. So there's hundreds, probably thousands or hundreds of thousands, hopefully, in Europe, people who belong to the community of practice, people who belong to the field of youth work in Europe. So in a way, you can say academy has 2 layers. One is your individual learning, so you come here to gain, to learn about quality, to learn about innovation in youth work. But it is also an event, well, actually after every 2 years, ideally, or 3 years in this case, the community gathers for the whole field to learn about 2 things. And one thing is what's going on. So what are the trends? So what are the trends in youth work, but also what are the larger trends that are affecting youth work? A second thing is what are the innovative responses that youth work has made? And these are mainly the contributions so far. The black arrows are saying, okay, this is not just for Boško, but it's also for all of us. So it's really invitation, share and share and share what's been happening in Kranjska Gora, so the whole field can learn. So thank you very much and welcome again, and let's see what's going on next. And Anita will lead us there. Woohoo!
You're going to get very warm hands by the end of this session. Okay, so I wanted to tell a little bit about what we've been doing all these months that we were rethinking this event. We didn't stay still. We were looking a lot at what did the community needs. What does the community need in these times where everything is getting postponed and adjourned? So during the last 6 months, we organized 5 different webinars, and we had high attendance, and you will find a beautiful visual summary of each one of them done by Mireille, our great graphic recorder. And we talked about different things in these webinars, from disruption, the disruption of COVID, but also all the other disruptions that are happening faster and faster in our daily lives. We covered trends, what is your individual role, what is the role of culture, organizational culture in innovation processes, and also how to create an innovation ecosystem in your local reality. And these are hopefully also topics we're going to tackle here. But if you want to know more about the webinars, you will see the great posters done by Mireille outside in the Oval Hall, okay? So that's one thing that I wanted to tell you. But there's more happening here, and we have the online team and the communication team that wants to give some information. So I'll pass the word to Lymanus, who is in the back there and wants to share some information with you. Lymanus.
Hello, everyone.
An applause for Lymanus.
Hello, hello. Yes. So I'll be staying here most of the time, sort of in a this end of the room where we have all the media and video production team will be kind of being a bridge between the stage and here. Yeah, my job is to tell a bit more about the event app. Most of you I saw, you already logged in. Not all, we see everything.
Big brother.
Yeah, and I will be showing a little bit how the app works. Yeah, so first of all, how to access the app. You don't need to download anything. Most probably you received a link already via your email. Also, you have posters around the space everywhere and QR code. So if you haven't accessed the app, just scan the code, access the app, and use the same email that you used for registration. Yeah? Then you will get by email a link, and with this link you will access the app. What else? If you cannot log in for some reason, something is not working, so just contact me, approach me, and then we'll see what could be the problem. Concerning program, all times are your local time. So especially for people who are joining online, you know, if you're joining from another time zone, maybe +1 hour or -1 or more, it will show your local time. Those who came here and maybe you didn't change the time in your phone, or you on purpose trying to keep the time zone where you came from, all the times will be of your system time. Yeah? So please pay attention to that. It will be adapting automatically. Then what you can do with the app, yeah, we can go a little bit back to the app again. So when you are in the program, you can always go through and mark specific program parts with the heart icon. Yeah? Then in this way, you end up actually kind of choosing your favorite parts, and it will be easier for you to follow. Especially tomorrow, after the break, we're going to have a number of parallel sessions happening, and you can choose only one. It's hard to be in 4 places at the same time. So just choose one of those that you prefer. You go in the session description, you see the contributors, you see the description, and then you choose where you want to go. Yeah? And it will help you just having your own personal program. So when you click on the heart, you will see a program. You may have also your favorite contributors there. And then when you click on the program, it will show only the parts that you marked. So it makes it easier for you to navigate. And then for every day, you will have your own program, right? So that's how it works. One important thing, whenever the session is ending, you can provide feedback to those who are organizing that session. Could be plenary session, could be a keynote, and can be one of the forums. So you simply click on feedback, and here we go. You will have some stars, and you can leave some comments, and then we can forward your feedback to people who were organizing it. Yeah? So help other people to grow and provide your feedback. Then for the networking, you are able to access all the attendees list. Yeah? So then when you click on the list, on a specific person, and you feel like you want to connect, you want to exchange contact details, or maybe you want to communicate with that person, so you make a connect request, yeah, you send it, connection is sent, and then the other person needs to accept it. And then you simply go there, you see all the connected people you have, and with these people you can start also a private chat. So you can message that person and so on, yeah? So if you go to the chats, you have chats with other people, then you have posts which we are posting as organizers. Always keep an eye on the posts, because there might be some latest details provided. Yeah? So that can be helpful to be up to date in case the room is changing or any other workshop is starting and so on. So that's how it goes. You have chat, you have posts, and if you click home, you have this general chat that you can initiate, maybe a meeting, maybe another morning walk somewhere or evening walk. So that's what you can do through the app. So either private arrangements, kind of networking meetings, or initiating something for all the group. And I think that's it for the app for now, and then plenty of other information there, links to presentations, extra resources, everything is there. Yeah, so that's your main tool to navigate throughout the event.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Laimanos. Yes, yes. So you got your own tutorial on how to use it. Now just use it. It's there for you. And I know that Dom from the communication team also wants to give some information, so I'll give you the floor.
Yes, thank you. Let's hope that this works. Yes, hello. So as you can see on the slide behind me, we encourage you to post on your social media and that you use the hashtag EAYW so that we can make visible what we are doing here. So please do use this hashtag while you are posting something about the Academy and what is happening here. You can also tag us on our Facebook or Instagram accounts. You can find us there. For the people who are here with us in the room, on this small screen on the right, on my right, but on your left, you can see a social media wall where everything which you post will be basically published. So if you want to see your posts published here as well, then use the hashtag and mention us, please. Also, one more thing which will be happening here is that we will be taking some interviews. So if you see me approaching to you, please don't run away. We would like to take a statement from you and ask you how was this experience for you and what did you get out of it. So yeah, basically that is it. So sharing is caring, have it on your mind, yeah, and let's make the Academy visible. Thank you.
Dom is also available to sell any products you might be needing to sell, so he does a great pitch. Okay, and for the next part, it's a very interesting part, I find. We're here to talk about innovation and current trends, and the Academy has invested very wisely, I think, in researching these topics. Looking into how innovation plays in youth work, how does it take place, what are the factors that influence the existence or not of innovation processes in youth work. And for this, they gathered a wonderful team of researchers, Dragan Atanasov, Miguel Angel Belletti, and Federica. And the three of them, they've joined forces to bring to us today a bit of their insights. And that's what we're going to do next, is to hear a representation of the team. So Miguel Angelo and Dragan, welcome on stage and let us know what you've been doing all this time.
Thank you, Anita. Hello, everyone. Miguel and I will have the privilege to talk to you briefly about something that kept us occupied during the pandemic. I think the three of us probably were the happiest that the academia got postponed a little bit, so we had more time for the research. So this is not the whole team. Federica Micheli is also part of it. She will not join us on stage, but we already agreed if we are speaking nonsense, she would throw things at us. The tablets, ready? And Sonia Mitterschkul also worked with us a lot during the last year and a half on this study. So let's move straight to the presentation because we have so much to say and so little time. Okay. Too much. Fast forward. So let's start with the research questions. And Uros already mentioned some. Just to say in the beginning, this study, this research was commissioned in the framework of the European Academy Youth Work. It came as a result of the needs that arose in the first academy, and then some questions were set for a team of researchers, us in this case. The questions were, what is the meaning of innovation in the context of youth work, and what are its key characteristics? So that was the first one. The second question was, what are the main factors that can support or hinder the process of innovation? And the third question was, how does innovation in youth work happen? So what is the process behind the innovative practices and approaches in the field of youth work? Very ambitious questions. This last one had to do with a model. So the academy was looking for some kind of model that would explain the process of innovation in youth work. We were a bit skeptical in the beginning about it, but then we came up with something that we thought could serve as a model for now.
To be clear, this research is not a quantitative research. There are no statistics on it. It's a qualitative one. When we say that research is qualitative, for us, does it mean that aims to better understand the phenomenon, to have a spotlight on this phenomenon and to understand better what happens. For doing this, we have a first part who was a desk research, in which we haven't found so many things, but we were able to identify a first definition of innovation in youth work, and in which we identified the first factors who can who can help or hinder the innovation. After this desk research, we had a battery of focus groups, a lot of focus groups, because 7 times with 34 people in total, with 11 different countries, in order to have a quite wide field in which we have investigated. In this focus group, we have the possibility to go deeper in the definition and also in the factors, trying to take from the ground the ideas that these people that were youth workers experience, youth workers who were innovators in their field, what were the factors that helped them. At the end of this, we were able to have a first model. We defined it. We define an ecosystem that now we will explain, and we had a survey with only. It seems very small number of responses, 77, but it's because the sample was a small one. And the sample was made only by people who were innovators in the youth field as youth workers. Some of them were from the focus groups and the partners that were working with them. So in the survey, we have the possibility to go deeper and also to validate the model.
And as Miguel already mentioned in the beginning, we did the desk research. And the point of that was really to find the definition to understand what innovation in youth work means. To our surprise, we did not find much. So we can even say there was no definition of innovation in youth work that exists before this. So now in the next slide, you will see what we think is the first basically definition of that tries to comprehend what innovation in youth work is. To create it, we borrowed from other fields, from education, from social work, even from technology, from other fields that are somewhat related to what we are doing. This is what we came up with. I'm going to read it and then outline some of the most important elements. We understand innovation in youth work to mean demonstrated methodologies, practices, tools, ways of approaching target groups, or organizational models that either have novel elements, that are upgrades of existing practices, or are completely new to the youth field or to a particular context, and that enable youth work to support young people to make changes and positively affect their lives and or contribute to a wider social change. A lot of elements in there. So to name just a few, one is that innovation youth work can happen on different scales. You see, from tools, methodologies, practices, all the way to organizational models and approaching ways of approaching target groups. It doesn't have to be completely new. Elements could be new. It could be new in a particular context. In the youth field, it could be borrowed from other contexts, or it can be an upgrade. But what is important, there are two intrinsic elements that we found unique to innovation in youth work, different from innovations in other fields. One is the role, the active role of young people as an active agency in the process. It came back all the time in all the practices that young people actively participate in many of the practices of innovation. As active agency, they have an active role in the process. So one is participation. The other important element is the value behind, so that innovation youth work should not be only about creating novelty, but it should be about bringing value, and it should comprehend kind of the values that youth work is based on. And this is why we have the making changes and positively affecting the life of young people. So empowering young people, not just to create something new for the sake of creating something new.
And then from the definition, we try to find the factors. And starting from the desk research, we see that there were some actors in this process, and the actors were first of all from the youth sector, no? Youth workers, young people, communities in which the youth work happens, but also other stakeholders near, for instance, education or IT or other like this. And then also the institutions, the national governments, local governments. And then there were also the forces. We call it forces because we see that are not really, in reality, the actors, but are something that push sometimes. And for instance, the economic condition, the policies, the trends, the culture, and so on. All these things create an environment from our perspective. And this environment is an environment that in a certain way is an ecosystem. A system in which is not static, is all the time in changing, and it changes because of the activity of the different groups, the different stakeholders, and the different forces that move inside the field. So, taking all these things together, we can define this the youth work innovation ecosystem, in which it's possible to start to see how innovation as a process can start and can also go on. I told you before, no, in the methodology, that we have this survey at the end. And we asked in the survey also if, for the people who answered it, their ecosystem was favorable or not for innovation. And the answer, the question was till 1, not to 5, a lot. No? And the average number was 3.4, especially, and the best result, so quite favorable. And these people were innovators, so probably this helped them. But we see that especially it happens in rural areas and small communities. So this is something interesting for us, because we said probably we haven't the possibility in this case with the survey to ask to the people directly, as in the focus group, but probably rural areas and small communities are places in which it's possible to network, to know each other, to establish a relationship that can last in the time. And so probably this is something that helps in comparison with big cities, metropolis, and so on.
And then we come to the question of what are the factors that can support innovation to happen. And here we defined factors on 3 different levels, based on literature and based on the examples of innovation that were shared with us. Individual level factors, which have to do with the individual who is behind the process of innovation, so the youth worker, the young person. Then organizational level factors, which have to do with the organization, the youth organization, or any other organization that is behind the process in which innovation is happening. And the contextual factors, which depend on other stakeholders in the ecosystem or the other forces that Miguel already mentioned. And then when we explored this a little bit more in depth, we distinguished between all these factors 2 types of factors based on what they do and how they are related to the process of innovation. We called one of them triggers, the other one conditions. What we mean by triggers are forces, catalysts that push the innovation to start happening, that kind of insert energy in the system, that put the system into motion, and that push innovation to happen. And you'll see examples of triggers, but they pop in existence. They are not necessarily part of the ecosystem. They just come in existence for a brief period of time. Crisis, something unexpected, a new idea pops in the ecosystem, and then it can launch a process of innovation. The other type of factors that we called conditions, we thought they don't directly contribute to the innovation process to start, but they provide the underlying conditions for innovation to be successful and to be sustained. So they are the forces caused by all the other actions of all the stakeholders that create a climate in the ecosystem that is either more or less favorable to innovation. And then for each of these factors, we distinguish individual, organizational, contextual. And then we evaluated those. We put them in a survey. We named about 15, I think, or 13 from each. So triggers and conditions, and we asked the participants to evaluate their importance. And what we found was that, in general, the conditions were evaluated as more important than the triggers, which means that for the respondents, it was more important that the ecosystem is favorable to innovation to happen and to be sustained. And also, in both types of factors, the individual factors were evaluated slightly more than the other factors, which means that innovation in youth work is innovator-driven. It comes from the youth worker, it comes from the young person, not from the organization, not from the donor. It comes from the individual behind the process. However, all of them, all the factors were evaluated positively. So all of them got very high results, very high grades, which also shows that innovation in youth work cannot be driven by, we couldn't single out 1 or 2 or 5 factors. All of them appeared important, which goes back to the ecosystem and the idea that innovation sparks from this complexity of relations between the different stakeholders.
A complexity of relation that can be taken in consideration if someone would like to think in a policy, no, about it. Here we have some, the most important, 5 most important factors for the average grade, the conditions that support innovations. We can see very, very quickly, but the most important is the mindset of the youth workers. To have a mindset open, creative, flexible, and so on is very important. Then, from the organizational point of view, we have 3 different ones. One is the organization who is able to provide a frame, a space, a time to innovate. No? Innovation is, if the organization is able to create a frame in which the people is able to innovate, probably innovation can arise before and better. Then it can be also if there is no frame. But this condition is very important in order to help the innovation to arise. And the same is the possibility to fail, to try and error. And this is another element. If the organization gives the possibility to experimentation, this helps innovation. And the third of organizational is the possibility to share. Organization in which it's possible to share a lot, innovation is better, is easier. Organization in which it's not possible to share because I'm afraid that someone can catch my idea and so on, innovation is more difficult. And for the contextual, the context, the stable funds that are not conditioned to have immediately products, immediately effects, immediately results. No, something we call it unconditioned. No, but in order to be more patient, in order to see if this innovation can be useful or not. And the triggers, the 5 more important. The first is about the needs. If there are a strong need coming from the community of young people, this is a strong trigger. The desire of the youth worker to create something new, the motivation to have an idea, a new idea that I would like to develop, the changes, the development. I don't know, for instance, a change of the labor market, a change of educational system, a change of the borders. No? We crossed the border here. When there was this change, it was very strong also for the, for instance, for the international youth work, and something unexpected like COVID or wars or something like this.
And finally, we come to the model of innovation youth work. And we get to the model when we integrate the ecosystem and the factors. So Miguel already mentioned in the beginning that all these actors, all these stakeholders, they do things, they take certain kind of actions. Here, for example, we have governments bring policies, they make policies, or youth organizations that do different kind of trainings for youth workers, for young people. There are different developments. Some of those factors are influenced by individual stakeholders. You have the national government, very powerful stakeholder. They will adopt a new law, and that can be impactful. But then others, like the trends, the social developments, the economical development, they are kind of big, large forces that are created by cumulative factors of all those stakeholders. And then what happens that some of those factors they create the conditions and they create an ecosystem that is either more or less favorable, as we said, to innovation, but then within that ecosystem, from time to time, these triggers appear. The new idea that Miguel spoke about, the youth worker will get a new idea, an unmet need, so the youth worker would notice that there is a need of a particular target group that is not met, or the COVID-19, or a different kind of crisis, or new funding opportunity, or supportive policy, and then what we speculate now, because we haven't really checked this, what we speculate is that within this model, there are a few different things that can happen when a trigger will appear. One, nothing will happen. So you might have, for example, crisis or new opportunity, no innovation. It could also happen that innovation is sparked, but it is not sustained. So somebody tries to do something, and then he or she fails after a month, and then this is not sustainable. Or you could have innovation that starts, and then it is replicated and sustained and successful. And these are, for us, the three different scenarios that can happen. And what we think that is the reason for this is what kind of ecosystem it is. So this is how we explain to ourselves why, for example, in some communities, in some contexts, you have the same type of trigger provoking innovation, and then in others, not provoking innovation. And this is something to be further explored, but this is how we think that innovation can happen, that it needs a trigger. Even if the conditions are not very favorable, then innovation can still happen, because as we said, the innovation is individual driven, which means that there are those youth workers that are very passionate and have very strong desire to create something, and they can do it even without the favorable condition. But if the conditions are more supportive, then more innovations can happen and more of them can be sustained. What is key, we thought, when now moving to the last slide, which is the recommendation, what is key is that we need to know which of these factors can be controlled by us, by the stakeholders. Because if we can control, if we can impact, influence them, then we can create an environment that is more supportive to innovation. Policies, funding, unconditional funding that Miguel talked about, creating mindsets that are more innovative, etc., etc. And we come to the last part, which is the recommendations, just a few of them. One is knowing the factors, knowing what we can control. We need to work on creating more favorable conditions for innovation in youth work to happen. So that's the first one.
The second is about, we said no, if the organization can help their members to learn, to have an open mindset, to try and error, to fail, and so on. This create a culture of the organization can be supportive to innovation.
The third one, to have more flexible and more innovation-friendly youth policy. So not policy that is pushing for innovation, because we saw in the survey that's not effective. It's not effective when you tell youth workers and organizations, innovate now. But you have to create policy that will enable them to experiment and to fail, and then to try again and fail again until they succeed.
The fourth is more stable and unconditional funding opportunities, especially for, you said, no, these three different, no innovation, but immediately fail, and innovation who is able to go on. especially for these, the difference for these two is to have funding who are able to wait and see if and to sustain the innovation. For this reason, we say unconditional, maybe conditioned for a long time and not asking immediately results.
And the last one, and there are more in the publication itself, but the last one we wanted to point out was to support this mindset attitude of innovation in youth workers. Because what the survey showed, what the focus group showed, that it's not about the skills, that youth workers do have the skills. What is more important is to reinforce this, to be prepared, to be adventurous, to be spontaneous, to be brave enough to innovate. And for that, you need the organizational support. You need the safety net so that the youth worker can nurture that kind of mindset. And that's it from us. Thank you very much.
Not 20 minutes, but more or less.
1 minute late. Thank you, Federica, again. Thank you, Sonia,
Thank you,
for all the
Federica.
support during the last year.
Thank you so much. We know it's a lot maybe to take in. You traveled a long time, maybe your brain is still a bit foggy. So we wanted to give you 5 minutes just to buzz. So find somebody next to you to share what you heard, what makes sense, what applies in your reality, maybe what is challenging to understand still. 5 minutes just to talk with people around you. Maybe 1, 2, 3, not big groups, okay? Don't be shy, find somebody, join a little group. Just join people, tap them in the shoulder.
Okay. Okay. Buzz. Good. Woo! Welcome back. Such a nice image. Thank you. It's always a challenge to cut the good conversation. That's a magic word. Yes, it's always a challenge to cut the good conversation. So but it's just the beginning. It's just the beginning. It's just a day zero. So the conversations like this will continue. This was just to get a flavor. As we said, the community is the curriculum. So this was just an example of that. So how community becomes the source of learning. So thanks a lot, Miguel, Dragan, and Federica, with a silent member, looking at if the guys are speaking nice things for your work, and really pioneering definition of innovation in youth work. For all of you, in your backpack, you already get the full report from the study. So this was just a flavor, and tomorrow evening in the networking lounge or networking evening, there will be also a moment to speak to 3 of them and ask them questions and see what is these triggers about, how these conditions. I disagree. So that's so good to stimulate our thinking. And as we said several times already today, so one thing is about innovation, but the second thing is about trends. And trends is a bit like, what are these big things going on? And probably some of the trends could be triggers in the spirit of Miguel's and Dragan's speech. So 5 years ago, our next speaker, Gary, who comes from UK, Gary Pollock, he's a professor of sociology at the Manchester Metropolitan University. So 5 years ago, Gary with a colleague wrote a paper which is called Young People, Contemporary Challenges and the Future Trends. So that was 2017, like 5 years ago. It looks very recent, but as the speed of time is speeding a lot. And in the last 5 years, probably many things happened. So we've been wondering what happened actually with all these predictions that Gary and his colleague actually made 5 years ago. How much this is still valid 5 years after, when we had COVID crisis, war in Ukraine, many other things that actually we couldn't even imagine maybe probably 5 years ago. So that would be my pleasure to introduce Gary, but just keep your seat for a second. So before I actually leave the floor to Gary and to tell us actually how the whole bigger picture around trends that are affecting youth work today looks like, I would like to just tell you there will be a space for questions to Gary. So in order to do that, please memorize or write down or type in the Menti code. So you go first to menti.com, and then you go to the code 407-14647. And there will be space through Gary's talk to put some questions. And probably after Gary's intervention, there will be space for a couple of most voted questions. So meaning that you can type a question there, but you can also vote for questions of other people. So in a way, we get a bit of sense what community resonates the most with. So if you have the Menti code and Mentis are ready, I actually would like to leave stage to Gary. So big applause to Gary Pollock.
Thank you very much, Darko. And thank you to the Academy for inviting me to this, meeting here as well. I'm very honored to be here. Aha. Apologies. I think I must have broken it. I think we're there. Right, yes, it's showing as I would expect it. So, yeah, thank you very much for that introduction, Darko. And yes, it's quite right. We did a paper, me and a colleague of mine, 5 years ago. We actually started it 6 years ago, 2016, but it was published by the Council of Europe in 2017, where we were asked to identify what are the existing and likely trends for the future. And so it's actually been very interesting for us to revisit it in relation to this presentation, which I'll be giving you here today. And so the abstract for my presentation, which is in the proceedings of the meeting, is as shown here. Now, I'm a social scientist, a sociologist. I'm also a survey sociologist, so I do statistics and so forth. Now, social scientists, I think, are notoriously poor, actually, at making predictions. They're pretty good when it comes to doing it with surveys, in a statistical sense, making predictions and creating models. But when it comes to thinking about society and what's in front of us, we're pretty poor at it. You know, so gazing into the crystal ball is something which we are generally not good at. Evidence being, if we were good at it, we would be laying down bets on who's going to win an election. We're social scientists. We really should know that sort of thing. Who saw Trump coming? Who saw Brexit coming? Not the social scientists in the UK or in America, that's for sure. But it's important for social scientists to try to think about the future because it's important for policy. And it's important in relation to the vast amounts of money which are spent on policy throughout the world. Family policy, youth policy, that you'll be most interested in, of course. Now, we can do some of that by looking at demographics. We can look at birth rates. We can look at death rates. We can even factor in migration rates, which complicate some of this as well. But that only gets us so far. We need to be doing something more. We need to be asking bigger questions about what directions society might be moving in to try to think about the future. Now, in my work, I've got a slide shortly which I'll show you about this. We actually have done some exciting work on thinking about the future, looking to see what the future might hold for us, because we need to do that for some of the things some of the projects that we're doing, which are trying to anticipate what young people, children and young people might face in future years, in future decades. So what I'm going to do is talk under 4 headings. First, provide you a little bit of context in relation to the predictions and so forth. Secondly, I'm going to talk to you about something called foresight planning. So that's a methodology which we use to try to predict the future. I'm then going to give you an example of how we've used foresight planning on some projects that we've been working on. And then finally, I'll come back to my predictions, revisiting the predictions of 2017 and see how well or badly we did with them. Okay, so first of all, context. what we're looking at when trying to predict the future is we're looking at drivers of change. What are the drivers out there which we can look at, which will create change at various levels, individual, regional, societal, community, and so forth. And what generally we're looking at are things to do with the economy, world events, technological change, and policy programs themselves as well. When we're thinking about these drivers, we try to link them to specific spheres of life and then anticipate how these spheres of life may be affected by the drivers which I've just shown. So we'll look typically at health, education, crime, employment, and so forth, as is shown on this slide. When we do our work, we should expect a lot of continuity. Now, society has got a lot of underlying continuities about it, and it would be inappropriate to assume that things are always going to change and always going to change fast. So there are certain underlying inequalities in society which prove to be very, very difficult to change. So the inequalities between men and women, between different ethnic groups, and so forth. These are underlying issues, underlying trends, which are proving very, very difficult to change. On the other hand, there are things out there, there can be events, world events, which will have acute impacts, which can promote change at a very fast rate. As Darko was mentioning, what's happened in the past 5 years, well, COVID, war in Ukraine, better understanding about climate change and how it's affecting the whole world. So there are continuities and there are changes, and we need to think about what, different ways in which they are manifest. Now, in relation to a policy community, a policy and practice community, what are the challenges? Now, in short, the challenges tend to be to do with scarce resources. You're working in an environment whereby you're asked to do things, you're asked to support young people in various ways, you're doing projects to help them, and yet there's often arguments that there's just not the money available to do it, you've got to find ways of doing it cheaper, and so the challenges for policy and practice communities tend to be how do we deal with scarce resources? And if we do think about, since the financial crash of 2008, we're still suffering the consequences of austerity, and there's not really been any extra pots of money out there for us to be supporting social policies and so forth. However, what's been fascinating for me in the UK, but I think maybe across Europe as well, is looking at how governments throughout Europe, maybe throughout the world, but certainly in Europe, somehow managed to find lots of money to support society throughout the COVID pandemic. All of a sudden, there was a lot of money available out there for things to happen. So as this slide is trying to show, is that scarce resources is generally an issue, and so money is often at the center of policymaking. So now that's the context. On to foresight planning. So foresight planning is something which we've been doing in our unit. We've been doing it for around about 5 years. We didn't do it for the predictions of the trends in 2017, but we've been doing it subsequently. We started to get using it around about this time. And we find it very useful. And that's why I thought it would be useful to talk to you about it here today. And I've put a link to a very important document which has been produced by the UK government on how to go about doing foresight planning. So this is a foresight planning toolkit. There's a link to it there, and you'll find, I think Laimonas has uploaded that link to the program as well. So with aims, the aims and objectives tend to be for foresight planning is to identify future policy trends and make sure you get the prioritization of it right. But there's a specific methodology which it follows. There's different ways that you can go about doing it, but they all look something like this. What you're interested in is trying to detect signals which you can then do something with and use that to predict the future, predict what's going to be important in the future. So the signals are generally generated by what's known as a horizon scan, where what you do is you find signal spotters, and I'll say a little bit more about them shortly. Signal spotters to tell you what they think is important and on the horizon. What you do then is, once you've done a data gathering exercise, not unlike the data gathering exercise that was just shown earlier to do with innovation, you know, because it's qualitative. This is a qualitative technique. But qualitative techniques are very powerful, as was shown in the previous session. So you gather the signals. You then try to identify what the drivers are, and I'll say a little bit more about that shortly. What are the drivers which are related to the signals? How do you categorize them? How do you draw them together? What are the clusters of themes which are actually important when it comes to foresight planning? After you've done that, you then hold a workshop with your research team, and you use that workshop to then lay out a matrix of these different drivers and then develop future scenarios from them, different potential futures that may impact society. So we're talking about the ways in which society might develop in the future, not the way it will develop. So some of them could be positive, some of them be negative, some of them tend to be related to specific fields. But the important thing here is that you've got to distill down all of these different signals into a manageable matrix. Generally speaking, it's a two-dimensional graph. So you've got 4 different possibilities for the future to try to simplify the message which is coming through from the foresight planning. Okay, I said I'd say something about signal spotters. So who are the signal spotters? Now the signal spotters, done properly, they should be a diverse group of people, different stakeholder communities. If you get the signal spotters right, then you're more likely to develop more accurate and more interesting and more innovative ways of thinking about what the future might hold. So the group in here would be a very important set of signal spotters for future youth issues in relation to policy and practice. But we're looking at these sorts of people: national policymakers, research experts, NGOs, commentators, and young people themselves. Young people are absolutely central to the process, as was emphasized earlier. So you need a diverse group of signal spotters. You give these signal spotters very clear instructions on exactly how they need to be going about this foresight planning exercise. You harvest all that data, and then you deal with it as I described in the previous slide. So what is it we ask these people to give us, and what do we do with it? So we get all sorts of interesting information back from our signal spotters, and we ask it to be evidenced. So we look for evidence, and we try to think about how this evidence might stack up in the future. And so a little example here of how we did it for a project where we're interested in child and youth well-being, where we've got an insight which we then translate into a driver. And so the insight here comes from a scientific piece in the New Scientist about the way in which IVF embryos can be used. You can do some science to test and predict IVF embryos' risk of having a low IQ. Now, you bear with me on this. Some of this stuff can be a little bit odd, but it's important for us to engage with it, however odd it might seem, and take it to where the logical future may lie. So you can see here that the abstract is that the new IVF screening tests can assess complex traits, diseases, and intelligence. Therefore, there can be some medical interventions done at that level with embryos to genetically engineer children. Now, go back 10 years, this sort of thing was seen as maybe inappropriate science for the future. I've certainly seen films which one of my favorite films is Gattaca, which actually engages with this particular idea. But the point is that genetic engineering is here. It can be used in ways that might become acceptable in the future. They might be completely unacceptable now, but you might find that the acceptability may change in different communities in different countries around the world. And that's where we try to look at insights and try to translate them into drivers, which we can then use in a signal, in a foresight planning process. Okay, so third section, moving on to themes and drivers of change. So what I'm going to talk to you about now is a project which I've been working on for some years. It's actually a collection of projects which have all been funded by the EU. And I don't expect you to read all this, but the project has as its ultimate aim to set up a Europe-wide longitudinal survey which would help us to understand children and young people's well-being. So we would be planning to collect data from families who've got 9-month-old babies up until those babies become age 24, but also from families who've got 8-year-old children and survey those children up to the age of 24 in such a way that we'll be able to compare their experience, 2 different cohorts at similar sorts of time. So it's a longitudinal survey. Longitudinal surveys are known to be really powerful when it comes to policy. They're very good at actually making statistical predictions and therefore helping policy interventions. Now, we will be collecting this data, or plan to collect the first wave of data for the 8-year-old children in 2027. So this is a long-range project. We're developing all sorts of tools for it. Central to it is a questionnaire. What we need to do is we need to be able to future-proof the questionnaire. How do we do that? We do that using foresight planning. And so this is where we've used our signal spotters. We've developed a methodology which has given us a range of themes, thematic areas, which are, from the signal spotter's perspective, regarded as very important elements which need to be captured within a longitudinal survey. And here you see the future trends, the 7 categories which we've got here, this is what came out of our signal spotting exercise. So these are the 7 major themes which we drew from the signal spotting exercise. You see them there: global challenges, digitalization, inequality, life and work, child-youth participation, contested science, and new world politics. So what do they look like? Each of them, what we do is we look at, we develop a list of issues, and then we try to translate from those issues underpinning drivers, and we use those underpinning drivers then to help us understand what these future scenarios might be. And so I've got one for each of those headings. I shall go through them relatively quickly because I've got a few more things I need to talk about. But here you can see them. So demographic change, global warming, climate change, migration, underpinning drivers. Global warming increases the risk of flooding. Communities in Europe are forced to relocate. The aging population and depopulation due to migration from certain countries and regions. So these are factors we need to take into account and think, and we were interested in it in relation to what we needed to capture within the survey at different levels. Digitalization, AI, online life, automation, big data, and so forth. And then here, what are the underpinning drivers? What are the factors which we need to be considering for our survey? Use of the internet increasing, dependencies on the internet, the ways in which artificial intelligence are going to affect the labor market, and the disinformation which exists and has quite a fundamental impact on the way people think. So I've got a slide for each of them. I'm not going to talk through each of them in any great detail because I want to move on. So polarizing inequality, child and youth participation, contested science, that's a big one, quality of life and work, interesting one there in relation to Zoom homework. Greetings to everyone who's online. It's a shame you can't be here. It's an absolutely gorgeous part of the world. And new world of politics, you know, the fact that we've got populism around the world. Politics seems to have changed quite substantially in different regions over the past 10 years, certainly. So they were a set of, they were our, the different themes which we used for our exercise. And we developed scenarios in relation to that. And I'll be happy to actually share those with you because that's not part of this presentation. I can share another link afterwards. What I want to do now is to revisit the predictions now from 2017. So link to the paper is on the app, and it's there as well. So you can read the paper that we wrote. So what did we do in this paper? It was an academically informed paper. We were looking at research. We were using our skills as researchers to see what people were writing, to see what projects had been done, and to try to translate that into an understanding of youth trends over from 2017 and into the future. The three main areas that we focused on in the paper: marginalization and inequality, empowerment, and political values. And so what I've got is a fun little exercise for you. The link actually is in the app as well, but you can use this QR code which will take you direct to a survey, because what I'm going to ask you to do is to evaluate how well or badly we did with our predictions. Okay? So all of these predictions are there to see. Now, my original idea was I would evaluate them myself, and I would give myself a little green tick for everything went well, and maybe a little red cross or a question mark if it hadn't gone so well. But I thought, no, you shouldn't be marking your own homework here. You should be letting other people look at it and let me know what it is. It's a bit of fun, this. It's not a systematic survey. The responses that you give will be interesting maybe to this group, and I will certainly share them with this group once, over the next couple of days. I'll email them to Darko and he can send them round. But what you do is you've got an ability to evaluate each of the predictions which are listed there on a scale of 0 to 10. 0, it was rubbish. 10, it was perfect. So that's the fun and games. Okay. So in relation to these three headings, what did we say back then, 5 years ago, or 5 or 6 years ago? So it's, you know, you've got to cast your mind back to when Trump was elected, when the UK left the European Union. That's when we were writing. That's when we were doing our thinking. It seems like a lifetime ago in one sense. And yet, it's not actually that long ago, is it, at all? So in relation to marginalization and inequality, we looked at education, employment, socioeconomic life, health, and the polarization of inequality. So we've got predictions under each of those headings. Each of those predictions are listed here. So there's 5 of them. But I don't propose to talk in any depth about all of them. So I thought I'd just focus on 2. So in relation to marginalization and inequality, we said the gig economy which is emerging will become embedded. And so I would say in 2022 that's a pretty good prediction. However, it's actually much more diverse than we imagined it would be. So the gig economy it's fragmented, it's diverse. Not all occupations are included in it. The professional occupations are not obviously part of a gig economy. And even the delivery drivers, the couriers who are taking food and coffee and whatever to people, it's different in different countries as well. It's manifestly different in the UK, Romania, and France. And I mentioned all 3 of those countries because it's a project which one of my colleagues is working on, and he's done research exactly looking at what the experiences are in those 3 countries. It's diverse. So I would say it's partially right, this one. Second one, current generation of young people are projected to be at risk of worse health in later life than their parents. Again, I think that's still pretty good. I mean, health is a massive thing. Generational change is important. Generational change is a massive issue that I should have said something about earlier. I'm a longitudinal survey sociologist, so I do think very much about how people's lives change over time, but also how a particular cohort, a particular generation of young people are affected by the circumstances they find themselves in. The COVID generation, the kids who were at school, who were who were supposed to be at school, but then sat at home while they were doing their learning, and what's going to be the longer term impact on them? You know, there's an idea that people can be scarred for life by their experiences at a certain point in their lives. It could be a labour market which is just not functioning, and therefore it's difficult to find a job, or it's COVID and it's affected your education. Or you could be an employer and say, you did your qualifications during COVID. They're not quite as good as the ones who were done before and after. Anyway, so second theme, empowerment. So we looked at electoral participation, disinterested and exclusion, digital communication, the regulation of social media, identity politics, austerity, and young people as focal actors. So we've got 7 predictions there. By the way, I will share this slideshow because although the paper is fully detailed, the 2022 comments that I make on these predictions is not included, so that might be something which is of interest. Okay, 2017, we said the effects of austerity will spread wider in society, and economically driven ideological debates will ensue. So you know, that austerity, ideology, and also the identity politics which can be generated from that would be important. And that, I think, has been something which we've seen all around Europe, certainly in the UK. What they call the culture wars are between political parties have become a lot stronger, actually, even than I predicted they would. So economic arguments, which is how we generally understand politics is coded, is almost taking second place to culture politics, emotional politics. Brexit was all about emotional arguments. It was nothing to do with economic rationality. Second one, whereas acute national political events are likely that young people will be at the vanguard, will be a core component of mobilized participation. This is a belief that I have, that, you know, that generally speaking, you know, when there are big events, when society is changing, when there is a rupture as opposed to continuity, young people do tend to be at the vanguard of that. You do tend to see that. And I think that we can certainly witness it in relation to the Extinction Rebellion and the various school-based protests in relation to that, but also in relation to protests taking place around Belarus, Russia, as well as other parts of Europe in relation to the war in Ukraine, the invasion of Ukraine. And finally, political values and participation. So we looked at civic engagement, reaching vulnerable groups, democracy and tolerance, everyday social life, and importance of place. So we've got 6 predictors there. Let's just focus on 2. So the embedding of populist parties, I've already said it. I think that one certainly has, it's come to pass that, that it's not just that we have populist parties, but we've got previously mainstream parties who have taken on a populist character and start to promulgate populist policies within their program. It's no longer marginal. It's actually quite mainstream in many different countries. So there's a new form of politics out there, and the mainstream parties are to some extent struggling with how to deal with it. Others are capitalizing on it hugely. And then the second one there, place. Place is something which we always predicted to be very important. And that's something which I think came across in the previous presentation as well, where there was this idea that, you know, what works in one community might not work in another community. There's a certain logic which underpins regions, communities, different parts of the world. And so place is always important. It's not just what country you're from, it can be what town you're from within that country, even which part of the town you live in. That can be a very important part of your life. And I think that that's going to continue. It tends to be a perennial finding. Okay, so what do we miss? So you've got an opportunity to tell us how well or badly those predictions went. We've also given you a little bit of space to tell me what we should have been talking about then. It was not a systematic exercise. Why do we miss things? We missed things, probably, if we did, because we relied on academic findings, research projects. We did not do a stakeholder consultation. It was not a systematic method. Now, I think we can do pretty well. There's good research out there which tends to cover a lot of bases, and we do look at policy research as well as pure science research, but it is still, nonetheless, it wasn't a systematic method. And so, the way in which you avoid missing things is to follow method, is to do something systematic, is to use a robust methodology. And I'm a firm believer in the efficacy of undertaking a foresight planning to help to gaze into the future, to help us to understand what the future might hold, and then to develop policies and practices, maybe, which can help in terms of dealing with that. Thank you very much.
Stay a bit. Thanks, Gary. Yes, parallel to you, the Mentimeter was running, and there's a number of questions that came in. Apparently, the topic of foresight planning has actually raised a lot of interest in the group, and many people are asking, can we use it even though we are not researchers, or how youth workers can use foresight planning?
Well, my answer to that would be that the foresight planning methodology is best understood as a policy tool, not a research tool. So it's, the toolkit which I've given the link to is being developed by the UK government. Now, whatever you might think of the UK government at the moment, it's actually, there's some very good parts of the government. The science office in the cabinet office is very good. So my answer to this would be, absolutely, you can use this methodology, and you should, if you think it's going to do something for you, because it is aimed at policy and practice. And it's a broad stakeholder consultation. Research is only one part of it. It's only one part of it. I mean, you prioritize asking young people their views and engaging with young people. We do the same as well. I mean, participatory methods are very big in academic research at the moment as well. So I think that what we can maybe understand is that there's a certain convergence of practices between academics, policymakers, and practitioners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one more question regarding that, but I think you answered it a little bit with this one. And you spoke a lot also at one moment about spotting the signals, which apparently for prediction of future probably is quite important. But you spoke about signal spotters, and even saying how young people are one of those most important signal spotters, especially in this context where we are. And some people said, actually asking you, how signal spotters can have the same weight in the detection of the future trends if some of them are not even recognized on a professional level. So how it is?
Right, okay. So weighting, I mean, weighting is a very scientific thing to think about in any case, isn't it? So that's what we do in surveys. We weight things. We weight things to try to make them more representative because we think that it's, something's more important than something else. Underrepresented groups need to be weighted to make them more represented in a survey. So this idea that you need to weight things is an interesting one. Okay, so young people. I think if the question is how do you weight the responses of young people, I don't think there's an answer to that. This is a qualitative technique, and so you've got to think about it in a nuanced way, and there is no single answer to that. Fundamentally, what's important is to go for that broad range of views. And when I say broad range, it's not just broad range of stakeholder views, it would be a broad range of young people's views. So you should be trying to get young people of different age groups, of different gender, of different ethnicity. That diversity within your sample will drive the it will drive the signal spotting, and it will give you more likelihood of getting a variety of inputs, and the kind of inputs which will spark an interest, an idea as to what might happen in the future. Difference, diversity, you know, that's the important message to get out here. You could have an enormous sample, but it might just be one-dimensional. You've got a very narrow fraction of social class, income, ethnicity in there. So it could be an enormous sample, but just meaningless in terms of what the diversity of experiences actually are.
Yeah, I think maybe connected to what Dragan and Miguel was speaking before, talking about centrality, central role of young people, innovation in youth work, where we are. Probably the big question for you would be, how reliable are young people as signal spotters? Could you trust them? Can we actually spot future without young people, or?
Can you predict the future without young people? Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. That's a very simple answer.
Yes, thank you. Thank you. This brings us back a little bit to the context where we are. There was also a question about can you predict my future?
I saw that one. I did see that one. Yes.
I don't know how much does it cost. Maybe I have a question for you, which is not maybe in the list of the Mentimeter question, but I was wondering, when you looked back in the 2017 paper, so what was the most surprising that you actually found from the perspective of 2022?
Okay, so I guess this is general as opposed to a specific finding. Looking back at 2017, I was surprised at, by and large, how much continuity there was. You know, a lot of the things which we're talking about then, it's only 5 years. They've not, you know, we could say the same now. Because these things to do with the marginalization of young people, you know, the fact that young people tend to be the ones, the highest unemployment rates, the ones who get sacked first because they're cheapest, they've got the fewest rights. These are things which happen all the time. So there's a lot of continuity there. And so, you know, that's what struck me. Actually, you know, if I was going to mark my homework, I'd be giving myself lots of ticks. So we couldn't have predicted, I don't think, COVID. You know, that's a big thing which we obviously couldn't predict. However, and this is something I did want to say something about. You know, within any organization, you've got a risk register, a risk management system. And to some extent, you need to build in something like that to any sort of futurology. Because, you know, if you don't do that, then you take away the possibility for this acute event, which has had massive impact across the whole world. You know, it's got to be there in the background. Now, the governments have been, they were taken by surprise with COVID. They shouldn't have been, because these ideas about, you know, a world event such as COVID, they've been around for decades. It was not actually, it shouldn't have been a surprise. So, you know, so thinking about risks and the way in which we think about risks in organizations is maybe something we can integrate to this sort of future planning.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Gary. I think that was the beginning of the Academy to kick out not just inward looking how good we are in innovation, but also to see outward a little bit what's going on out there and actually how can we predict future. So thanks a lot for giving us inspiration for that. Lots of people ask for the presentation, but I think you already answered to this question. Yes. And so I think with this we go further with the rest of this session. And thanks a lot for being with us.
Okay, so we are about to close our session for today. Thank you, thank you. We paid them for this. A few announcements, a few reminders, okay? So first of all, tomorrow morning, all right? Just getting you into the future already. And I'm doing the prediction that there is a session at 8 o'clock in the morning. Actually, there's two. For those who are early birds and like to stretch or meditate or do a bit of yoga, so upstairs in the 4th floor, you will have 2 optional sessions if you want to do them, just to start the day in a relaxed manner. And you're very welcome there, yes. So 2 facilitators will be there waiting for you. You can come with your pajamas, comfortable. If you go to the yoga class, take a little towel to put on the floor, but you don't have to be an expert. You don't even have to have any experience, okay? So don't be frightened, yeah? So that's one thing. Either you go there or not, at 9:30 we start here, and I predict that that will happen really at 9:30, so don't be late. Me and Darko will be waiting for you with other guests for an exciting session in the morning. And that's it for tomorrow. Yes? Okay, that's for you to survive until tomorrow. Now for today, we're going to close the session and we're going to have dinner. It's going to be a standing dinner here in the Oval Hall in 1 hour. So at 7:30, 1 hour and a bit. Okay, 7:30 Slovenian time, we are there. And very importantly, for the next days and also today, you need to wear your badges, because also for the restaurant is how they know if we take from the buffet or if they come with a cart and then ask you the money for it. So at all times, please wear your badges. Also for tonight, you will need your badge to a little activity that will take place after dinner around 8 o'clock. Also here, which is an activity that will help you to find your tribe. Okay, we're going a bit new age. Find your tribe. That's going to be at 8. It's also going to be here. You just need your badge with you. And from my side, I think that's all the announcements I have. I'm looking at the team if I'm missing something. I'm looking at participants. Anybody wants to add anything? Then give yourself a nice pat on the shoulder. We did very well. We arrived here. We had a session. And a big round of applause. Thank you so much. Very good.